If you got your Bibles, go to Revelation chapter 7. That's where we'll be tonight. That's where we're going to jump in. If you remember the last time we were together, Revelation 6 ended with a question. Don't worry, you won't miss anything. None of this is on the handout. Revelation 6 ended with a question, and the question was, after opening that sixth seal and seeing the judgment that was coming upon the earth, the question was, who can stand? Who would be able to stand against it? The wrath that was coming, the wrath of God, the wrath of the Lamb. And in order to kind of set the stage, I want to kind of go back real quickly and look at this vision that John has had from the beginning until now. Okay? Because when we get to chapter 7, the question that's answered in chapter 7 is prefaced by what was seen in 4 through 6. Okay? And if you remember when we started, this is a visual book. It's an apocalyptic book, meaning it's dealing with symbols. And so the symbolism is important. The picture that John saw and the picture that John describes is what's important for us to see. Okay? And so you remember when we started in chapter 4, it opens with this picture of, thank you, Lord. I'm trying. 1, 5. 1, 5. Do I have it or do you have it? I got it. There you go. Chapter 4 opens with this picture of the throne room in heaven. We see God centered in the middle of the throne. We see the sea of glass. We see the 4 creatures before the throne, the 24 elders around the throne. We see the innumerable angels around. We see the 7 spirits before the throne. And if you remember, it's here that we learn that in the right hand of God, the one seated on the throne, he has this scroll, or he has this book, depending upon which translation you use. And in it contains the prophecy or the vision of what is going to happen to these 7 churches. That's who the book is written to. That's what the vision is about. These 7 churches are wanting to know, what does the future hold for us? Because we live in Rome. And you remember, the scene was no one was found to be worthy to open the seals, because it was sealed with how many seals? 7. Perfectly sealed. Okay? And so they looked all throughout heaven, they looked all throughout earth to find someone who was worthy to open the seals. And then the next picture we see is of the Lamb, the Lion of Judah, Jesus, who comes in, who is now worthy to open up these seals and reveal what is contained in it. Okay? And then if you remember last week, we started opening those seals. And we started working through that process. And we saw Jesus, first of all, right off the bat. And you're going to hear about 4 angels, and you're going to hear about all kinds of stuff. Don't mistakenly equate those 4 angels with these 4 pictures that we see here. Because the picture John saw of Jesus on a white horse, of the enemy on the red horse, of famine, of economic hardship on the black horse, of death on the pale horse, these are just symbolic of what's going to take place. These aren't literally, there's not going to be a horse show up, with a rider. It's symbolic. It's a picture that says, first and foremost, Jesus is triumphant. If you remember that, we kind of picked that thing apart. He's kind of pictured as a Parthian warrior. He's got a crown, he's got a bow. We see the enemy, which in this day and age, when I say this day and age, the first century, for these 7 churches, who was their enemy? Rome. Okay, so we get the enemy pictured, and as a result of that, we see this other horse on this black horse and the rider, and he's got scales, and we talked about the implication of judgment, of famine, of economic hardship, one of God's judgment that's going to come. And as a result of that, what normally happens? Death. Okay, so we have the rider on the pale horse. So that's the first 4 seals that get opened up, and then the 5th seal, we see this picture of the altar, and under the altar were who? Who was under the altar? Saints, souls who've been martyred. Okay? Again, assurance for these 7 churches. Even if you die, okay? Even if when judgment comes upon you or the enemy kills you, where do you end up? With God, in the very throne room of heaven. Okay? And then the 6th seal is open, and we see this, the sun's black and the moon turns red and stars are falling from the sky and there's earthquakes and there's all this, and it's symbolic of the judgment of God. And remember last week we went through and we looked at almost every one of these symbols and how it had been applied to Babylon, it had been applied to Edom, it had been applied to Jerusalem, to Judah. All these different countries throughout the Old Testament had faced similar prophecies and the coming wrath of God upon them. Again, symbolically. Question? The moon turning, or the sun turning dark, that's a good point. Yeah. Something they've seen. Earthquakes, good point. Happened at the resurrection of Jesus. Ground shook. Earthquake. Sun goes to, at his crucifixion, the sun turned black. These are things this first century Christians would be full aware of. They understood their Old Testament. They understood how it had been applied to other nations who were against God's people and that God's judgment was going to come upon them. Now, understand this. These 7 churches are located where? In danger? Is that what I heard? In Turkey, in Asia. More politically, where are they located? Under Rome. They're in the Roman Empire. Okay? And if judgment of God is coming upon the Roman Empire and you live in the Roman Empire, what can you expect? This is all going to happen. Thus the question at the very end of chapter 6 was, after looking at this picture, okay, that John sees, the question is, okay, who can stand? Who can withstand this judgment of God? Now, chapter 7 has been referred to as an interlude, if you will. Okay? Again, Revelation 6:17, the very last verse. The great day of the wrath has come, and who can stand? Chapter 7 is not necessarily a seal as much as it is an answer to that question. Okay? I will also say this. Chapter 7 is highly misunderstood, misinterpreted. Have you ever heard of the 144,000? Okay. The problem with the 144,000 theology is it has to be taken literally. There are certain groups that take that number to mean there's only 144,000 people going to heaven. Okay. I hope not. I hope not. And I think I'll show you tonight how that's not necessarily the case. All right, so let's just jump in. Let's go to Revelation chapter 7. Let's read down to about the first, 8 verses or so. After this, John says, I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds of the earth, that no wind might blow on earth or sea or against any tree. Then I saw another angel ascending from the rising of the sun with the seal of the living God, and he called with a loud voice to the 4 angels who'd been given power to harm earth and sea, saying, do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. And I heard the number of the sealed, 144,000, sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel. 12,000 from the tribe of Judah were sealed. 12,000 from the tribe of Reuben, 12,000 from the tribe of Gad, 12,000 from the tribe of Asher, 12,000 from the tribe of Naphtali, 12,000 from the tribe of Manasseh, 12,000 from the tribe of Simeon, 12,000 from the tribe of Levi, 12,000 from the tribe of Issachar, 12,000 from the tribe of Zebulun, 12,000 from the tribe of Joseph, and 12,000 from the tribe of Benjamin were sealed. Okay, let's just stop there for a minute. John sees 4 angels holding back what? What? Wind. I wish we had one of those angels around here. Kind of like during hurricane season, just kind of post him down there at the Gulf and say, just kind of hold back the wind. Now, it's important. Revelation is what kind of a book? Apocalyptic, which means it's what? Figurative, symbolic. We're not talking about wind. What are we talking about? You can read ahead on your outline. If you'll notice throughout the Bible, I think this is in there, angels in the book of Revelation are always associated with the forces of nature. Okay? In this case, we're talking about wind. If you jump to chapter 14, there's an angel he's been placed in charge of fire. If you go all the way to Revelation 16, there's an angel in charge of the waters. Now, if God is in control and angels are his servants, and you have angels in charge of wind, and you got angels in charge of fire, and you got angels in charge of water, what is God in charge of? Everything. Specifically, what? Nature. And can God use nature to exercise his judgment? We've seen it all throughout the Old Testament, right? God using nature to exercise judgment, especially upon how many remember the story of the hailstones that came down and killed the army, or fire from heaven that came down and destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. The army of Egypt was destroyed how? Water from the Red Sea. Okay? Over and over and over again, we see throughout the history of God's people where God's activity, or God is in control of nature, and he will use whatever he has created in order to exercise his control and his dominion. Wind is often used to describe the activity of God on the earth. Okay? If you got your Bibles, go to Isaiah 57:13. I just want to read another one just to show you. To these Christians in the first century, these images would not be something they would wrestle with. Okay? 57:13 says, when you cry out, let your collection of idols deliver you. Here God's talking about judgment against an idolatrous nation. Let your idols help you. Okay? The wind will carry them all off, and a breath will take them away. Now, is Isaiah literally saying that a tornado is going to come by and pick up their stuff and carry it off? Or is this symbolic of God's judgment, God's action in the world? I think we can see that there. Okay? The same thing's going on here in Revelation. When John sees angels holding back wind, what he actually is referring to is he sees angels holding back the judgment of God. And it makes sense, because when we read further, it says, I want you to hold back the judgment until a specific thing happens, until my people are sealed. Okay? Which we'll get into in just a minute. All right? The book of Daniel, for example, has examples of God using his angels to bring judgments upon enemies. Y'all remember that? Who are the two most famous angels we hear about in the Bible? Michael and Gabriel. Yeah, over and over again. Okay? John 3:7 and 8. I just want to read this for you. It says, you should not be surprised at my saying, you must be born again. This is Jesus talking to Nicodemus. You remember the story. He says, the wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit. Let me see. I've been told all my life you cannot see wind. True statement? You can see the effects of wind, but you can't see wind. Okay? If you live here and you sit through enough hurricanes, you can certainly see the effects of wind all over the place, right? Oklahoma, we had tornadoes. You could see the effects of wind everywhere. But let me ask you this. The wind is also synonymous, especially in the New Testament, with what? Or breath. The Spirit. Okay? Do we see the Spirit? But do we see the effects of the Spirit? Yeah. Okay? I just want you to kind of get your head wrapped around the imagery that's being used here. Wind was used often to refer to the activity of God on behalf of his people. Okay? The angels who were holding back the wind from the four corners of the earth indicate that the judgment that was to come was going to be a universal judgment, because where are these angels positioned? Four corners of the entire earth. Now, I will say this. There are those religious skeptics who use this passage to say that the Bible is inerrant, or that it's full of errors, that God is not omnipotent, that God does not know all, because obviously how many corners of the earth are there? None. But again, understand, this is not meant to be a scientific statement. Okay? What he's saying is from north to south, from east to west. That covers it all. All right? I think we understand that, and I think they understood it as well, very well. So these four angels represent the judgment which was about to fall on the earth, and they were holding back any wind from blowing on the land or sea. And it's important to understand here also that without the restraining force of these angels, judgment would have already taken place. In other words, had they not held back judgment, judgment would have already come upon the earth. But it's important to understand who's in control of judgment. God is, who is always in control of judgment. That's an important thing for us to remember. Are we in control of judgment? No, we're not. God alone is in control of that. Okay? And judgment would only come when he was ready for it to come, and he didn't plan for anyone to harm the earth or the sea or the trees until he'd put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of God. Now, another distinction that's important to understand. Where are these 144, I think I have 1,000 people located in the vision? What? They're among the tribes, but where are the tribes? Are they in heaven? Where? Where's judgment coming? On the earth. Where are the tribes? On the earth. Okay? This is the beginning. This is the beginning of what we will see throughout the rest of the book of Revelation as kind of in theatrical terms, a split picture where we will see activity that's going on in heaven and the corresponding activity that takes place on the earth. But remember, it's all still just symbolism. Okay, that's important to remember. What's going on in heaven is figurative for us to see. What's going on earth is figurative for us to see as well. Okay? The 144,000 had to be sealed, and so the judgment on the earth had to be held back until they could be sealed or they would have been harmed. So right off the bat, we see this picture of, okay, God is involved in the affairs of humanity. God doesn't just sit up on his throne and wish he could have something to do, but God actively is involved in what goes on this planet. Okay? Do we believe that? I hope so. I hope so. Okay? Now, John also sees a fifth angel coming up from the east. Okay? This is pretty cool when we look at it. Having the seal of the living God. What comes up from the east? The sun. Okay? Let's go to Psalm 84. I want to read this. I also want you to see how this imagery was in Old Testament literature before these folks ever received this vision. Psalm 84:11 says this. The Lord God is a sun and shield. The Lord bestows favor and honor. No good thing does he withhold for those who walk uprightly. O Lord of hosts, blessed is the one who trusts in you. Let's just go there too. Go to Malachi chapter 4. Malachi, there's a prophecy in chapter 4 about the coming Messiah. If I can get there. Verse 2. But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness. Now, notice in your Bible how son is spelled. What's that? S-U-N, not S-O-N. That's not a misprint. Okay? The Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings. You shall go out leaping like calves from the stall. This is a prophecy of Jesus, but he's referred to as what? The Son, or the Son of Righteousness. The Son, sky Son, not Son, Dad Son. Okay? So twice we get this imagery of God. And now we have this angel rising from the east, which also is where the sun rises from. Now, I'm going to hold you there and go back to the sixth seal. What was one of the judgments that was coming upon the earth? What was going to happen to the sun? It was going to turn black. And now he sees this image of an angel coming up from the east, okay? Indicating the sun is about to arrive. And you know, what does the sun do when it arrives in the morning? Besides make you mad if you're really good in a sleep. It brings light. It illuminates the world, okay? Light is such an important, it's an important word to understand in biblical terms because it is used from Genesis all the way through Revelation. And light is always used in conjunction with who? Come on, is light good guys or bad guys? Good guys. It's always, Jesus was the what of the world? Light of the world. We are called to not let our light, don't stick it under a bushel. Light's always good. And so we get this picture of this angel coming from the east as the sun rising. And so I think the picture here is of these folks in these 7 churches. Yes, judgment's coming. Yes, it's going to be dark. Yes, it's going to be black. But the sun's going to come up. The sun's going to shine. After the darkest night, what always happens? The sun always comes up, right? In the very beginning, there was chaos, there was disorder, and Jesus in Genesis 1:14 declares what? Let there be light. Okay? 1 John 1:5, God is light, and in him there is no darkness. So this angel from the sun rising, he's bringing good news. The judgment in Revelation 6 is going to be turned to light. What's he telling these folks? What's he telling these people? What's he telling these 7 churches? Don't despair. It might look dark. It might look bleak. It might look like, the world has come to an end. But the sun's going to rise again. The sun. God's son. Okay? But this angel from the east not only comes, he calls for delay, telling the other 4 angels to wait. Okay? Don't harm the land until we put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of our God. We'll get to this in a little bit, but in one of Ezekiel's visions, he saw 6 angels of God with destroying weapons in their hands, and yet another angel standing with a writer's inkhorn by his side. We're going to read that whole story in a minute. Anyway, and he tells the other to wait, but don't touch anybody in 9:6. Slaughter old men, young men, and maidens, women, and children, but do not touch anyone who has the mark. Okay? And so what we see in both cases is judgment, tribulation, whatever you want to call it, can't come, and it can't come because who's in control? God's in control, but it can't come until his very own people are marked or sealed. In Revelation 7:2, it says they had the seal of the living God. Now, we got to clarify something here. Most of the time for us, okay, we are New Testament Christians. We spend a lot of time in the New Testament, as we should. We talk about a seal. What do we typically think of when we think of us as Christians being sealed? Holy Spirit. I mean, Ephesians pretty much tells us that we have the seal of the Holy Spirit. Don't confuse the two. The seal we're talking about here is not the Holy Spirit. Okay? It's also not a tangible mark or a tangible sign. This is all figurative. Okay? And how do I know that they're not sealed on the forehead with the Holy Spirit? How do we know that? What's that? They're already God's people. And if they're already God's people, what do they already have? The Holy Spirit. So we're not going to add the Holy Spirit to a bunch of people who already have the Holy Spirit. All right? Again, don't get hung up in the wordage. This is symbolism. This is God saying, I'm putting my mark on you. Okay? The servants of God who were being sealed, as you said, already possessed the Spirit of God and are being sealed because of that fact, not with that fact. It's not something tangible. This is so important to remember because understand, if the seal of the Spirit, if the seal of God is not tangible, what other seals won't be tangible? If the mark of God, the beast, if the mark of God is symbolic, then guess what other mark is going to be symbolic? The one that Hollywood has made billions and billions of dollars off of. Right? 666. The mark of the beast. Made a whole series of movies about some little boy who had 666 on the back of his head when he was born. Right? Y'all remember them? Hobbs, did you see that movie? No. Okay. He's laughing. I thought maybe you watched it. The Omen. Y'all saw it. Old movies. Gregory Peck movies. It's been around for a long time. Right? What? You're not that old? Well, I've seen Gregory Peck movies, so that doesn't mean anything. If I'd said Errol Flynn and your eyes perked up, then I'd have gone, okay, well, maybe so. But you understand what I'm saying, all right? Just like with this seal of God on the redeemed of the earth is figurative. When we get to the mark of the beast, it's figurative, it's apocalyptic, it's symbolic. Okay. Let's go to Ezekiel 9. Because I think you'll maybe understand better the language that's used in Revelation and how it's just used again from before. Let me just read this for you. Ezekiel's having his vision. So then he cried in my ears with a loud voice, saying, "Bring near the executioners of the city, each with his destroying weapon in his hand." And behold, 6 men came from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, each with his weapon for slaughter in his hand, and with them was a man clothed in linen, with a writing case at his waist. And they went in and stood beside the bronze altar. Now the glory of the God of Israel had gone up to the cherub on which it rested to the threshold of the house. And he called to the man clothed in linen who had the writing case at his waist. And the Lord said to him, listen, this sounds almost identical to Revelation, "Pass through the city, through Jerusalem, and put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and groan over all the abominations that are committed in it." In other words, go mark all the people who are upset because of sin. Okay? And to the others he said in my hearing, "Pass through the city after him and strike. Your eye shall not spare, you shall show no pity. Kill old men outright, young men and maidens, little children and women, but touch no one on whom is the mark. And begin at my sanctuary." So they began with the elders who were before the house. Then he said to them, "Defile the house and fill the courts with the slain. Go out." So they went out and struck in the city, and while they were striking, I was left alone. I fell upon my face, and I cried, "Ah, Lord God, will you destroy all the remnant of Israel in the outpouring of your wrath on Jerusalem?" Here we're talking about Jerusalem. Then he said to me, "The guilt of the house of Israel and Judah is exceedingly great. The land is full of blood, and the city full of injustice. For they say, the Lord has forsaken the land, and the Lord does not see. As for me, my eye will not spare, nor will I have pity. I will bring their deeds upon their heads." Behold, the man clothed in linen with the writing case at his waist brought back word saying, "I have done as you have commanded." And that sounds brutal, doesn't it? I mean, God's telling this guy, we've got this writing case, go through the city, put a mark on their foreheads, all those people who are against sin. And he tells the other 6, you go behind him, and if they don't have the mark, what are they to do? Kill them. Is this literal or figurative? It's figurative. Ezekiel's having a vision similar to what John is having. Okay? Now, it's figurative in the sense of the guys going through the city. It's literal in the sense, is God's judgment going to come upon Jerusalem? Did God's judgment come upon Jerusalem? Did an invading army go through the city and kill men and maidens and babies? And yeah, historically, we know that to be true. It wasn't God necessarily sending angels through to do it, but he was using another nation to come bring judgment upon Jerusalem at that time. Now, flash forward, I don't know, 800,000 years. God's bringing judgment now upon Rome and using the exact same language, figurative. Okay? This is a symbol. This mark, this seal was just an assurance given in the vision. Does this seal mean that these saints are going to escape harm? They have God's protection. Does God's protection protect us from harm? Not necessarily, does it? What does God's... What's that? They'll be in the same place. And not only will they feel He's still with them. That's exactly right. That's why the fifth seal is so important. Remember the fifth seal? The souls under the altar who had died because of the testimony of God and of Jesus Christ. They stayed faithful to God and still what? Died. That's an important thing to remember, because we tend to, as humans, we tend to focus so much on the temporal, on the here and now, on life now. We hang on to it for dear life. We do everything we can to hang on to life now. What is God primarily concerned with? Life after death. Life when this life is over with. He's concerned with the eternal. He'd much rather take care of your eternal destiny than your physical destiny. We have a hard time with that. Because like I said, we will live as long as we can here. But Paul, what was Paul's attitude about this? For me to live is what? To die is gain. He understood. And I think if we really had a clue of what eternity would look like compared to our short time on this rock, we would spend a whole lot more time focusing on making sure we were right for eternity than the few short years we have here. We can't comprehend how long eternity is going to be. Okay? Yeah, we know many of the saints died during this judgment, but they were sealed. And the importance of a seal, let me ask you this. How many of you ever dealt with cattle? Okay, Dwayne. I don't know about Florida. When we were in South Dakota, it was a cattle had to be branded. I don't know if that's the same in Florida, because South Dakota is an open range state. So every piece of cattle you had to brand. Okay, what's the purpose of that? Ownership. Yeah, that one belongs to me. Okay. Now I want you to understand the symbolism of what John is seeing here. When this takes place, this sealing, it's God coming to His people and declaring, you belong to me. And you know what? You may get caught up in the carnage, the physical carnage of the judgment that's going to come, but it's okay, because I know my own. You're branded, so to speak. You will be fine eternally. Okay? All right. Let's move on just a little bit. Let's talk about the numbers real quick. 144,000. What? We talked about it when we talked about numerology. 12 is symbolic of what? What's that? The people of God. Okay? How many times do we hear 12 in the Bible referred to in concert with the people of God? How many tribes? How many apostles? I mean, you understand. Okay? Now, in Jewish numerology, you take a number, you multiply it by itself, you get, it's basically saying holy, holy, holy. You know how holy means something, but you say it 3 times, it means something even greater. You take a number, you multiply it by itself, you're taking it to the nth degree. You multiply it times 1,000, you take it even higher. Okay? So you take it 12 times 12 times 1,000, you're saying, listen, this is a perfect number representative of who? God's people. Okay? God's people. This is not a reference to there's 144 tickets into heaven and you got to make sure you get one of them. Okay? It's figurative of God's people. But remember this, the 144,000 are figurative of God's people where? On the earth at this time. Okay? The ones who the winds are being held back before judgment comes. All right? Now there are some that say that this is Israel. I mean, I can make a pretty good argument because it lists them off how? Tribe by tribe? Right? How many of you, what's that? And they were his chosen people. And Israel is God's chosen people. Right? Okay. A few things to combat those who say, well, this is talking about Israel specifically as a nation. Okay? First, nowhere in the book is that distinction ever even made. Nowhere in Revelation does it say this is just Israel. Okay? Secondly, it's the custom of the Apostle John, I think I put this in your notes, to use Old Testament literary devices, literary words to describe New Testament actions. For example, the temple in the Old Testament refers to what in the New Testament? The church. Right. The lamb in the Old Testament is who in the New Testament? Jesus. The altar. You hear the word altar, it automatically brings up thoughts of what in the New Testament? Worship. Okay. The tribes of Israel in the Old Testament, we think of who in the New Testament? Israel. Now, are there times in the New Testament when Israel means Israel? Absolutely. There's nothing in Revelation that makes a distinction that says this is a literal Israel. Okay? You know what I mean? Of the tribe of Israel. Right. Right. But remember, John will say the tribes are the sons of Israel in reference to the church. But let me just throw one more thing out there. This is kind of cool when you think about it. How many of you read, I purposefully read through all of the 12 tribes instead of just say, well, there's 12,000 from each one. Anybody know why? What's that? Manasseh was in there. Who was Manasseh? Joseph's son. But Joseph had two sons. Who was the other one? Ephraim. But you know what? There's another tribe that's not mentioned in that list too. No? Who? Dan. You guys are good. You guys are good. Right? Dan. Now, understand, very rarely in the Bible, believe it or not, very rarely in the Bible are the list of the 12 tribes of Judah the same. Okay? Sometimes Joseph is listed, sometimes Joseph is not listed, and Ephraim and Dan are listed as his sons who would receive those inheritances. But in this case, Ephraim and Dan are not listed. You may know why? What was Ephraim and Dan's issue with God? All right. That's your Bible. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 12. Now, I will say this. Let me just say this. This is speculation. Okay? Yeah. You're exactly right. 1 Kings chapter 12, starting in verse 25. Then Jeroboam built Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim and lived there. And he went out from there and built Peniel. And Jeroboam said in his heart, the kingdom will turn back to the house of David if this people go up to offer sacrifices in the temple of the Lord at Jerusalem. Then the heart of this people will turn again to their Lord, to Rehoboam, king of Judah, and they will kill me and return to Rehoboam, king of Judah. So the king took counsel, made 2 calves of gold. He said to the people, you have gone up to Jerusalem long enough. Behold your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. He set one in Bethel, which was controlled by the tribe of Ephraim at the time, and the other in, where? Dan. Then this thing became a sin, for the people went as far as Dan to be before one. He also made temples on high places and appointed priests from among all the people who were not of the Levites. I'll just stop there. Okay, so you've got the tribe of Dan, you've got the tribe of Ephraim, who both give in to Jeroboam, and Jeroboam says, listen, I'm going to lose control. So I'm going to build you some altars close. I don't want you to have to go all the way to Jerusalem. So he makes calves, golden calves, like what they worshipped when they came out of Egypt, and he sets them up in their land and convinces these two tribes to worship there, right? What was the problem? What was one of the main problems with the 7 churches? What's that? Idolatry. What is going to be one of the major influences on these 7 churches moving forward? There's going to be a very, very strong push for these churches to cave in and worship who? Caesar. As a matter of fact, there's an entire cult of emperor worship that's going to place all kinds of pressure on them to just say, you know what, it's easier if I just say Caesar is Lord, then I can go along to get along and everything's going to take place. Let me ask you this. Do you think the Christians who had been Jews in this first century were aware of the fact that the tribes of Dan and Ephraim were both judged because they caved into idolatry? You know they were. Do you think the 7 churches who read that list knew right off the bat what 2 tribes weren't listed and why? You see how this makes a little more sense? It's not just a list of, well, 12 from here and 12 from here and 12 from here and 12 from here. There's a reason behind it. And it's a reason they would get right off the bat. We got to do some backtracking to figure out what's going on. Okay? So they get this picture even in that, okay, those who cave into idolatry, they weren't sealed. They weren't marked. Okay? How much time I got? I don't. Man. Okay. I don't have time to get through it all, so I'm going to stop. I think. I got 6:15. Is that right? 6:45. What time is it? My watch says 6:42. What time is it? What does that say? Nothing. Well, quit it. Oh, 7. Oh, yeah, I'm way over. I'm still just clicking on. It says 6:42. Okay. So hold on to these. We'll pick it up with the second half of the vision next week. I knew I was ambitious with trying to get through it all in one night, but that's okay. That's okay. That's all right. So we'll pick up. Oh, actually, we won't. Don't forget, next week, don't forget, we will not have class on Wednesday night. We won't have any meeting on Wednesday night. We'll meet on Tuesday night next week. Okay, we'll have a Thanksgiving kind of singing thing next week on Tuesday night at 6:30. That's correct, right? Yeah. And so no class next week. So the week after that, we'll be back in here for that. So you got to hang on to these for 2 weeks. Okay. And then you can read ahead if you want, and we'll finish this up. It's one of my favorite. The second half of this chapter is really cool to me, so we'll get to that when we come back. Eddie's got a song for us. We, as always, want to give anybody the opportunity. If you need prayers or if you need help, if you need to respond to the gospel of Jesus Christ to make sure you are one of God's chosen, one of God's sealed, we always want to give you the opportunity to do that. But if you just need strength or encouragement, whatever you need, let us know as we stand and as we sing.